Yes, this is supposed to be a new series. Thanks for noticing. My channel is very writing focused, and I do so enjoy breaking things down to their components when I analyze them with a focus on asking, what was the writer thinking? This is both for things I like and dislike. So I figured I'd try making a series focused on the writing of individual scenes, asking, what is this scene? How is this scene? Why is this scene? And if it's good or bad. If you watch my reviews of which, you might be aware of what I mean, but I do intend to be more in depth here. The working title for this series is Beat by Beat. I don't know if that'll stick or if I'll come up with something cleverer later. Either way, this is both a test of the concept and the first episode. Please, tell me what you think. Avatar is a cartoon that really needs no introduction. It's widely considered by many to be one of the greatest Western cartoons of all time. Fun for the whole family with action, comedy, an amazing cast, and a lot of sequels and adaptations that are considered, at best, mildly controversial. I do not plan on watching the live action show, but I think it's kind of funny that, according to what I've heard, removing Sokka's sexism made two female characters less interesting. But really, this whole thing starts in the first episode of the cartoon, with a pair of siblings rowing a canoe. Today, we're gonna go over the writing of that first scene to see just how the franchise was introduced to a generation of kids. It's what I would say, but there's actually a scene that comes before that. The very first thing this show tells the audience is that this is a world with superpowers.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
As always, we get Katara's introduction, which is a tad different from how it usually is, telling us about the four nations and how they were at peace. You know, until the Fire Nation attacked. With this, we learn that controlling different elements is specialized to where you're from, and that the Avatar was the only one who could do all four and bring peace to the world. You know, until he vanished. Over the course of 100 years, the Fire Nation has approached total victory in their war. The men of the narrator's tribe went to help with the fight 2 years ago. Visual clues and the fact that the water tribes are the only ones called tribes tell us that she's from the water tribe.
Some people believe that the Avatar was never reborn into the Air Nomads and that the cycle is broken. I still believe that somehow the Avatar will return to save the world.
This line tells us quite a bit. It tells us being the Avatar involves being reborn into the Air Nomads, from which we can infer that it probably also involves being born into the other nations, but we'll learn about that later. And as Katara asserts that she has hope for his return, we finally see the name of the show, Avatar, The Last Airbender. So, exposition. It gets a bad rep, and as someone who's written a few manuscripts, I can tell you that it's both important and not easy. And front-loading your lore at the beginning of the story has an even worse reputation. But Avatar shows how you can get away with it. Your exposition just has to be more interesting than it is long. Over the course of about 79 seconds, we learn of a power system involving controlling the traditional elements, a 100-year war, a reincarnating chosen one that might, and probably will, given the nature of kids' cartoons, end the war as the last of its kind. Attached to that, we also get to be emotionally invested in the narrator, who shows how the war has affected her family. That's the key to this kind of prologue. You can use it to explain the basics of your world, but it's also meant to hook the audience so that they want to see more. So the world you're expositing about better be interesting. And with that out of the way, we can actually look at our introductions to Sokka and Katara. We start out over a landscape of ice and water with a lone canoe with two teens on it. The narrator and her older brother. Older, we can assume, based on his height.
It's not getting away from me this time. Watch and learn, Katara. This is how you catch a fish.
They're fishing, and we learn that the male teen is taking charge and even being kind of up himself about it. Her face says more than I ever could. But then she spots a fish and shows us our first non-narration example of bending, using her ability to pull out water with the fish inside. Immediately, it's made clear to the audience how useful the ability to control water would be when it comes to fishing. Unfortunately, Sokka, whose name she's kind enough to tell us, isn't paying attention to the fact his sister just accomplished what he's trying to do. He's still busy fantasizing about the smell of fish cooking. He's also kind enough to tell us her name is Katara. And then he accidentally pops the bubble. Okay, so we have a conflict. Katara just pulled a fish out of the water with water bending, only to have Sokka free it because he wasn't paying attention. And because Sokka wasn't paying attention, all he noticed was that water that wasn't where water normally is just fell on his head. That would be annoying, on both ends. The first thing to note is that Sokka is kind of an ass. The second thing to note is how they word their argument.
Why is it that every time you play with magic water, I get soaked?
It's not magic, it's water bending. And it's
Yeah, an ancient art unique to our culture, blah, blah, blah.
This is a conversation they've had before. Sokka doesn't care for Katara's abilities and sees them as a nuisance despite their clear usefulness. It also helps us realize that waterbending is not a universal trait in their tribes. In fact, Sokka's attitude and lack of respect denotes unfamiliarity with the ability. Katara's comment about Sokka making monsters at himself further emphasizes Sokka's attitude and kind of de-escalates any tension with the comedic shot of him doing exactly that. This isn't that serious an argument, and then they get caught in a current that leads to their boat getting destroyed. Now this escalates the argument. Katara's comments about her brother's inability to properly turn left makes him defensive, so he makes a comment about her using waterbending to save them. Katara interprets this as him blaming her for their accident, and Sokka responds by simply saying that he should have left her at home. Wait, why did he bring her with him? She didn't have anything to fish with. She doesn't seem to have had an oar to help him row. Was he just trying to show off, or did she insist on coming? I mean, I know she's dead so she can free the Avatar, but beyond that. Then sexism saves the world.
Leave it to a girl to screw things up.
Okay, now he's just solidly deflecting from his failure. The waterbending comment could have been a joke, but that was not. Katara gets very annoyed with her brother at this point and just starts venting.
You are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained.
So emotions can cause your powers to flare up. Good to know.
I'm embarrassed to be related to you.
Sokka notices she's breaking an iceberg and gets scared. We do learn quite a bit more though. We learn that their mother died and Katara essentially does all the chores while Sokka, quote unquote, plays soldier. One comment, I don't think Katara would call their home camp. We can clearly see that this outburst has been building up for a not insignificant amount of time. Also, damn, those faces are kind of funny. The iceberg breaks apart, setting the float they are standing on back, but fortunately not actually hurting them. Sokka remains weirded out and Katara is shocked at her own power. And then this pops out. Katara immediately decides that she has to help him out of the ice while Sokka remains suspicious. You think if she hit it a dozen more times and nothing happened, she'd have remembered to try waterbending? Or the animators would remember to animate Sokka moving at any point? And with a burst of light and power, the iceberg breaks open. Some weird guy in armor with a ponytail sees it. I'm sure he won't be of any importance. On a more serious note, if you're paying attention, you'd probably immediately recognize that he and his laid-back uncle are from the Fire Nation. Prince Zuko believes that his search has finally come to an end. He also has zero chill. When the ice settles, we see that Sokka has moved to protect his little sister with his body, and he's getting ready to fight the source of everything that's happened. Only for the bald boy to lose consciousness and fall over.
Please, come closer. What is it? Will you go penguin sledding with me?
I'm sure he won't be of any importance. And with Aang's entrance, I think we've reached the point where this video ends. So, after 7.5 minutes of runtime, what have we learned? We've learned the basics of the power system, been given the massive stakes of the world being at war, with the Avatar, who hasn't been seen in 100 years, as the sole hope for ending it. In unrelated news, we meet a weirdly dressed boy who's been frozen, Captain America style. We've met Katara and Sokka and learned of their dynamic. Sokka basically plays the role of the antagonist, belittling his sister's clearly useful powers, being prideful, unwilling to take responsibility, and sexist. In case you're wondering, yes, this is our king. But that's not all he is. He's clearly protective of her regardless of how much power she may have, so he's not just totally a bad person. and I'm sure we'll get more positive characterization for him later on. The real spotlight character though is Katara, our narrator. She tells us about the world and displays her hopefulness within it. Putting her up against her brother also shows us their relationship and how she often has to put up with his bullshit. It drives up her sympathy for her, further emphasized by her immediate desire to help someone trapped in an iceberg while Sokka remains cautious of the danger. We know she's a waterbender, but if her brother's attitude is anything to go by, that's not that respected or propagated a talent in their village. Not helped by the clues that tell us that she's not very good at it. And that's how Avatar introduces us to its world. It tells us of a conflict to get us hooked and brings us a brother-sister dynamic that's got flaws but is believable. And before everything is over, it shows us the threat of the approaching prince. A lot of exposition and characterization is squeezed into this short time before we even get to meet the main character, as Katara and Sokka's worldviews color the information they provide. And we haven't even scratched the surface on what's considered the best of this series. This video is definitely going to be longer than 7.5 minutes. Does this make me a long man? Someone ask Mola. If you enjoyed this video and format, or have some criticism of it, please tell me your thoughts down below. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thank you, and good day.